Cheers, guys. Epix911, welcome to the Elitist Geek, and a video I guess you can consider part 2 to my previous video. So if you just watched the video where I talk about additional new 3DS XL features that I missed in the first 3DS XL new version review video, this is that video, because I was going to include in the previous video some ramblings about 2015 and how 2015 is shaping up to be an awesome year for RPGs. And I know I covered it in a previous video where I talked about some, but I'm going to include new titles and kind of defend the argument. The previous record holder for me personally, for my top genre, which is RPG and strategy and RPG Light, 2013 was, and still until it's official, the reigning heavyweight champion for awesome RPG strategy releases. 2015 looks like it can do it, but, and we'll get into that, some of the titles I mentioned, I don't have specific dates for, nobody does, but it's assumed they're going to launch within 2015. All right. So some of you may be asking, well, 2013, what was so special about 2013? Let's go through what was so special about 2013, and hopefully I can make a good case for it. So if you liked RPGs and or RPG strategy games, and again, this isn't a comprehensive list, but this is what 2013 delivered. 2013 delivered Etrian Odyssey, Untold, Millennium Girl, which is a remake of Etrian Odyssey 1. Fantastic with its story mode. The same game, except instead of bitmap graphics, you now have polys for the monsters and all the other cool features that this game delivered. Unlike its bitmap predecessors, Etrian Odyssey 4 delivered 3D polygons. And let me tell you, playing this game again with the new 3DS in actual stable 3D mode is unfrickin' believable. It is so much fun. Strongly urge you guys and recommend you go back and the games you really enjoyed that you feel are replayable, play them if you own a new 3DS, and this time leave the 3D effect on, because me, like so many of you, or I, listen to my English, like so many of you, turned it off. And now, hell no, it's not getting turned off again. It's going to stay on permanently. So, Etrian Odyssey 4. So, again, we had Millennium Girl, Etrian Odyssey 4. We had Zelda, A Link Between Worlds, 2013. We had Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate in 2013. Shin Megami Tensei Devil Summoner Soul Hackers. Shin Megami Tensei 4. Rune Factory 4. Bravely Default, which to me is a better Final Fantasy than some of the original Final Fantasies. That may sound like blasphemy, but you compare it to Final Fantasy 1, 2, I would say Bravely Default is easily better. I would put it up there and on par with kind of 4 and 5. 6, I just have too many good memories of 6. It's too epic. Likewise with 7. But Bravely Default, if this were a Final Fantasy title, and let's face it, it is an all but name. It feels, it even has crystals for crying out loud. It would be a good Final Fantasy game. And then, lastly, for my collection only, Animal Crossing. Simulation, but really RPG light in terms of you're playing a role. I still classify that under the broad RPG umbrella. So that is 9 games. 9 games that I own from 2013. That's almost a game a month. That's freaking awesome. All right. What about 2015? Well, let's take a look at 2015. So, of course, everybody knows these two titles that I'm going to show because that's how we started the year. So we have Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate, and we have, sorry, this one, Zelda Majora's Mask 3D. So the Zelda title, of course, is a remake of the N64 game, which I personally enjoyed the hell out of. It was dark and mysterious, and it was almost the antithesis of the previous N64 Zelda game, which was brighter color palettes, a little more happy-go-lucky world. This world is much darker. Enjoyed the hell out of it. And then, of course, like I said, Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate, which I'm enjoying. So that's how the game year is starting. Well, what else do we have in 2015? We have Xenoblade Chronicles. That's supposed to be released sometime in April. And basically, anybody who owns this and likes RPGs, it's probably a safe bet they're going to be purchasing Xenoblade Chronicles. I own it for the Wii, but I prefer to play it on the PC emulator. And that way I can play it in 1080p. I use Dolphin. Looks fantastic. But I might put that on hold just to be able to play it with a 3D effect. What's April? A couple of months. I could easily wait. Now, what about Atlas? So Atlas had, as I showed you guys, some awesome games in 2013. What about 2015? Well, we have another Shin Megami Tensei title. This is Devil Survivor 2 Record Breaker. Now, what I'm hoping with this game, and I haven't done much research, so if you guys know, comment below. I'm hoping that unlike Devil Survivor 1 remake, it takes more advantage of the hardware architecture of the 3DS. Because really, the Devil Survivor 1, it looked great, but honestly, it was a bit of a lazy port, in my opinion, compared to what they could have done, right? And what I mean by that is they almost copied the game asset for asset in terms of how they ported it, right? Asset for asset. Not a lot of 3D effects, almost none. In fact, most of the game you're playing just 2D, one screen of importance. So my hope is Devil Survivor 2 gets a bit better remake treatment and actually incorporates some 3D. That would be awesome. Another title from Atlas that I'm looking forward to is Etrian Odyssey 2 Remake, which is formerly called Etrian Odyssey Untold 2, The Night of Fafnir. That sounds awesome. I enjoyed the first Etrian Odyssey, but I actually came to the series a little later. So I came to the series when Etrian Odyssey 3 was just released. So 3 was actually the first title I played in the Etrian series. And what I loved about 3, I wouldn't say detested, but I disliked strongly in 1 and 2. And that's some of the interface stuff. For example, equipping or checking weapons in 3 was pretty seamless. It was 1 or 2 button clicks and in and outs of menus. In Etrian Odyssey 1, it was very convoluted. You had to almost back out entirely from like a store menu to be able to check an item to go back in. So it was a bit of a pain in the butt. So I played a few levels, but I didn't get too far because I'd already been spoiled with Etrian Odyssey 3's interface and GUI. What I liked about the remake of Etrian Odyssey 1 is it took all of that, all those UI things that pissed me off, all of the GUI things that pissed me off, and based them on Etrian Odyssey 4. So bitmaps changed to polys in terms of the monsters. The combat skill system mirrored Etrian Odyssey 4 more than the first title. And of course, the 3D effects were included. And the big thing, a storyline. Yes, a storyline. Not huge. It's not all of a sudden going to become another Final Fantasy X in terms of storyline, or Xenogears or Chrono Cross or Chrono Trigger, but in its own right, it does the job. It shells a story around the frame that is Etrian Odyssey 1. We're also going to see Etrian Mystery Dungeon. That's another April release, I believe, which is going to merge the roguelike Pokemon Mystery Dungeon game with the Etrian Odyssey sensibilities. And I imagine that would be the interface, the inventory, combat, spell system in terms of combat, in terms of how things are calculated, not necessarily presentation. Because if you watch videos and screenshots, it's overhead and it's tactical, more like a strategy RPG, like a Final Fantasy Tactics or a Fire Emblem. You're moving your units around, your individual heroes, as opposed to seeing them 3D. Awesome. Can't frickin' wait. Another Etrian Odyssey title, the third one, tentatively slated for 2015, is Etrian Odyssey 5. Again, absolutely drooling. Cannot wait. That should be good. Citizens of Earth. Now, I'm just trying to think. Was that actually released this year? I believe it was, but I might be wrong. So I'm going to have to verify that after. I have it on my list, but now I'm kind of second guessing myself. Pretty sure it was January, but it could have been November, December. But either way, it hasn't really appealed to me. If it had been, what's the other game where Another World, or anyways, which was an RPG based on the real world, kind of. If it was more like that, I think it would have appealed more. And you know what? I may pick it up used. But right now, Citizens of Earth just didn't quite grab me, right? But I never judge a book on its cover. I just wait for an opportunity to try it, research some of it in videos, or, of course, buy it used. Dragon Quest VII. That should be awesome as well. The only thing that I think is going to be a little tough is going back to Dragon Quest VII's combat randomness when I've experienced Dragon Quest IX on the DS. In 9, you'll recall, or if you haven't played it, I'll tell you, but you could see your enemies, whereas previous Dragon Quest, they were basically random encounters, which, if you didn't have a tough party and you were in a tough area, would drive you absolutely freaking bonkers. So, Dragon Quest VII, other than that, looks to be a fantastic version that we're going to see on the 3DS. A new Fire Emblem game. Don't have many details about that, but I love Final Fantasy Tactics and those types of strategy games, so that should be good. Looking forward to that. And then finally, rounding off the list, Bravely Second. Strange title. Don't know. Japanese, English, literal translation. I don't know. Love the game, though. Can't figure out the title. So what is that? That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 11 games versus 9 that I'm going to purchase. So for me personally, if all those titles get released in 2015, 2015 will be the year for 3DS RPGs, as opposed to a contender or a wannabe poser year. It will be the year. Did I miss any titles? Let me know, guys, especially if it's RPGs. If I missed anything, I love me a good RPG or a strategy game. Let me know in the comments below. Like, subscribe if you like this video or these types of videos. I do tech rambles, reviews, news like this, and kind of everything in between. Thank you guys for watching, and as always, cheers.